What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. There's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. It's the LA Auto Show this week, so lots of debuts and some other interesting news as well. But before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So join if you can. It's always a fun time hanging out and talking cars with all of you. But anyway, getting into the news here this week. First off, the first debut here from LA is that Hyundai has revealed the 2025 IONIQ 9. And so it's their version of the three-row EV that shares the same eGMP platform with the Kia EV9. And as you can see, it's very aerodynamic, and it's actually the first Hyundai to even ditch the shark fin antenna, creatively packaging all the needed antennas in various other places. And compared to the EV9, the IONIQ 9 has a 1.2 inch longer wheelbase and is 2 inches longer and about 1.5 inches taller. And so width is almost identical, but other than that, I mean, it's a little bigger than the EV9, surprisingly. This should mean that compared to the already roomy EV9, the Hyundai should have even slightly more interior space, and behind the third row, there's 1.6 cubic feet more cargo space as well. Unfortunately, like the Kia, it has a frunk that varies in size slightly depending on whether you get rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but it's pretty useless for anything other than just the charging cable. Speaking of that interior though, it seats 6 or 7 depending on the configuration, and you can see that it gets the new curved double 12.3 inch screens in a similar interior design to the other IONIQs. And the second row is available with new relaxation seats that have what they call a dynamic touch massage, and they also swivel 180 degrees when parked to face the third row. All 3 rows also lay completely flat, and the interior materials are composed of a variety of eco-friendly materials, and higher trims provide a Bose 14-speaker stereo as well. Mechanically, they all use a 110.3 kilowatt-hour battery that promises over 300 miles of range for all trims. So the base model will be the Range Champ, running a single rear motor for just 215 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, but a solid 335 miles of range. Stepping up to the dual motor long range version gives you 310 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque, and if you want more, there's a performance version that gives you 430 horsepower and 515 pound-feet of torque, along with a 4.9 second 0 to 60 time. Thankfully, when you're low on charge, the eGMP platform means you get a pretty good 24-minute recharge time to go from 10% to 80% when you're using a 350 kilowatt fast charger. There's no pricing yet, but you can safely assume it'll be around the same price as the EV9, and it'll arrive first in America and South Korea in the first half of 2025, followed by Europe and other markets at a later date. But overall, I think it's actually really well done. I think it's a really cool look, and happy to see, Hyundai has finally gotten their own version of this electric 3-row. Hyundai has also revealed an Elantra and TCR edition, and so in addition to adding that giant wing you can see there, on the outside it gives you forged wheels that reduce unsprung mass, monoblock brakes with 4-piston calipers that are a little beefier than before, and in South Korea you also get that big N decal on the outside. Inside it's less dramatic with an Alcantara wheel, badges, and performance blue seatbelts. Unfortunately though, it gets no extra power, and so this is kind of the same thing that we see like Subaru doing with the WRX TS in a way, and some of these other things where it's just about improving the handling and not adding any extra power. So in the Hyundai's case, I think it's actually a pretty good amount of power for the price they charge for at least the regular one. So this is a little more forgivable for me. And anyway, so yeah, it's going to be on sale here in South Korea in December, and followed by other markets in 2025. So the other markets thing means I'm guessing we'll get it here in the States. But that hasn't been confirmed yet. This reveal wasn't actually in LA. This was in South Korea for this one. So we'll see, if it comes to the States or how many they make. They didn't say whether it's going to be limited edition or anything. I'm guessing it will be, but anyway, interesting to see that. And Kia has 3 debuts in LA here this week. So the first is the Kia Sportage, which gets a refresh for the 2026 model year. So we already saw the changes during its South Korean debut not too long ago, but for those that missed it, you can see that it gets new front end styling that's quite a departure from the pre-refreshed look. And out back, it's more evolutionary with new taillight internals and minor tweaks to the rear bumper there. Inside, it gets the newest curved double 12.3-inch screen combo that finally has wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. And there's the new steering wheel and an option for a head-up display and a digital key. Mechanically, the powertrains carry over, but the hybrid version does get 4 more horsepower, and the plug-in hybrid gets 7 more horsepower. They didn't detail exactly how it got those little boosts in power, but, nice improvements nonetheless. There's also a new terrain mode that figures out the proper snow, mud, or sand modes to utilize for you, instead of, you having to figure that out for yourself in case you were confused whether you were on snow, mud, or sand. But anyway, there's also a couple new trims to choose from for the hybrid to, kind of make it a little bit more accessible and just offer a little more variety there. And it'll arrive at dealers in late spring of 2025, they say, but there's no updated pricing for those yet. And next up for Kia is a refresh for the 2025 EV6. And again, we already saw this in South Korea earlier this year. But again, for those who missed it, you can see the new face up front there with the lights that are lower in the front bumper now. And that change makes the car about a half an inch longer as well with that new bumper and all that. There's also minor tweaks to the back end. And then inside it too gets the new curved double 12.3-inch display with wireless smartphone integration, along with a new steering wheel and improved wireless charging pad. Mechanically, it gets the same improvements as Korea with a bigger 63 kilowatt-hour battery on the lower trims that's paired with a meager 167 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque motor on that base trim. But there's a more powerful rear motor that comes on the other lower trims doing the same torque but a better 225 horsepower. And with the 84 kilowatt-hour battery that's available, this one will do 319 miles of range. You can of course still get all-wheel drive, and that dual motor setup offers 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. The GT version also gets a power boost to match the IONIQ 5N, meaning peak horsepower is now 641 horsepower in that overboost mode and 568 pound-feet of torque. I wasn't expecting the EV6 GT to get a power boost. I always thought IONIQ 5N was going to be kind of like the top dog, and I think that one still has more cooling than the Kia, so that's more of the actual track, hardcore performance one, but really great to see the extra power here in this. It also gets the virtual gear shifts and sounds from the 5N, which is also great news to me. I'm curious to see what sound they pick, because it was based on the Elantra N for the IONIQ 5N. It'd be kind of weird to have Elantra N sounds in a Kia. So I'm very curious what sounds they pick for this one. The other big news here, though, is that the 2025s all get the NACS port, and the port has been moved to the left rear fender for easier cable access to match the Teslas that those chargers were designed for, of course. So that's been a kind of a problem with a lot of these vehicles that aren't Teslas trying to use the Tesla superchargers, is the cable is just not long enough, and they're having to put in longer cables, and it's just the whole thing because it wasn't designed for that. And so now, I think some of these companies are figuring out it's just easier to move the port to the left driver's side there, and make sure that it's all, kind of in the same spot as a Tesla. But there's also better steering thanks to a new belt-type steering column that's now power tilting and telescoping. There's also more sound deadening for a quieter ride, and frame reinforcements to perform better in the newest IIHS testing, which is all really good, substantial improvements. That's great. And then lastly, there's no pricing yet, but it'll go on sale in the first half of 2025, and it will now be built in Georgia alongside the EV9, which means it could potentially be eligible for tax credits, except Trump is basically, said he's not going to have tax credits. So kind of a big miss by Kia here that, they brought production to America for no reason, because now there's no incentive to do that. So we will see how long it stays in America. And that factory in general, we'll see what they end up doing with that factory. They may reallocate production to some of their, more volume sellers. So they maybe save on shipping a little bit better versus the slower selling EV9 and EV6 here. So we'll see how that all plays out, or maybe let's get rid of the factory altogether if there's no incentive. But anyway, very interesting to see that, a really good improvement there for EV6 though, regardless. And then the last Kia debut here was another GT model, the 2026 EV9 GT, which is a vehicle that I'm not sure anyone was asking for. I guess there's a little bit of demand for an electric three-row that's fast, because we've seen, Model X selling the high-performance versions for many years now, but so if you happen to want a fast three-row EV, this GT version gets 501 horsepower thanks to more powerful motors front and rear, with the back one being much more powerful, which should give this version of the EV9 a more rear-biased feel than you had previously with the slower GT line version, which was more evenly matched 50-50 on power. And so 0 to 60 time drops from 5 seconds for that GT line down to 4.3 seconds now. It also gets bigger brakes, a sportier suspension with adaptive dampers, unique wheels wrapped in Continental Performance tires, and the eLSD from the EV6 GT. It also now gets the virtual gear shifts and sounds, and it's great to see that they're spreading this out to more models. And this is another one I'm curious What sounds are they going to pick for this? Is, an EV9 GT going to sound like an Elantra N? Or are they going to pick something else? What would you even pick? Are they all just going to sound like, I don't know, Sonata, or like K5 GT N line, kind of things. I have no clue what they're going to do with sounds. It'd be fun to see them just go creative and just do something a little bit out of the ordinary. But anyway, very curious about that. There's also sportier seats inside, covered in Alcantara and lime green accents. And it too gets the NACS port, which I assume is coming to all 2026 EV9s. I don't think they announced that yet, but there's no reason why the GT version would be the only one to have an NACS port. And again, we're talking about a 2026 in particular for the EV9 here. So I'm guessing that that's when those will get that. But unlike other EV9s, this one will be built in South Korea instead of Georgia. I mean, they didn't say why, I don't think, but maybe this one was a decision that happened a little bit, more recently, and because they're saying this one's not going to come into production until the second half of 2025. So maybe this one is a little bit further out, so they were able to adjust that plan and say, yep, we'll just leave this one in South Korea because there's no incentive anymore to produce it here in the States. So, yeah, we'll see though, pricing for that. I think GT line version is already like $75,000. So count on this being 80 easy. So yeah, we'll see how well that one sells. I'm excited to see it. Performance versions of anything, I'm always happy to welcome with open arms. But, this one, I don't know. I mean, EV9 again is not selling super well. I can't imagine this is going to help that out with it being more expensive and faster. Two things that it doesn't need, I don't think. But anyway, cool nonetheless. And then Genesis also had their own reveal here in LA this week. They revealed the refreshed 2026 GV70 and Electrified GV70. So it gets conservative tweaks here to the styling, just like the GV80's refresh, which makes sense considering how good looking the GV70 still looks. And so on the outside, the gas one gets a larger grille and very slightly tweaked headlights and taillights, just like we saw with GV80, G80, and new front and rear bumpers and new wheels, plus a new color called Ceres Blue. Inside, the big news is the 27-inch curved display, just like in the GV80, that brings wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto finally, and replaces the previously separated two-screen setup. There's also the other new stuff we've seen from other Genesis updates, like the new steering wheel, redesigned wireless charging pad, and the Bang & Olufsen stereo. Powertrain-wise, it's all carryover for the gas one here, but the electric one does swap the 77.4 kilowatt-hour pack for an 84 kilowatt-hour pack, promising more range than the 236 miles of the current one. It also gets the NACS port there and will include a CCS adapter as well. And there's also a new suspension feature for these called the Highway Body Motion Control that I guess is self-explanatory, just to level out the ride there on the highway. And that also they've said that these safety systems have been improved as well for these 2026s. And so it also does get that new terrain mode as well, I talked about with the Kia, to figure out the proper drive mode there for the driver. And they'll both be arriving at dealers here in the first half of 2025. And I think, again, perfect refresh for the GV70. Didn't need change, looked really good. I'm glad they didn't mess it up, and just continue to keep that very good styling that Genesis is known for. Volkswagen has debuted the American version of the Tiguan here this week, the 2025 Tiguan. It's an all-new generation here, and styling is pretty similar to the European version we saw earlier this year, just with a longer wheelbase here. But it's on the evolved MQB Evo platform that uses more aluminum, as does the suspension, and this contributes to a weight loss of about 170 pounds actually compared to the last generation, which is a really good improvement. Compared to the old Tiguan, it's a little bigger overall, even with the shorter rear overhang than the last one. And inside, it's pretty impressive with a very cool 30-color ambient lighting available that you see here, along with a standard 10.25-inch digital gauge cluster and a standard 12.9-inch infotainment screen. There's also this huge 15-inch screen you see there that's available on the higher trims, and it's paired with a new 12-speaker Harman Kardon stereo. Dual zone climate control is standard, but tri-zone is optional, which is great. And the wireless charging speed has been tripled, and it's now a cooled wireless charger. So really good improvement there. They've also added 4 airbags, actually, for a total of 10 now, with a driver's knee airbag, a center airbag, and rear side airbags all being standard now. So that should certainly help it in the new crash test. And as for safety tech, they'll now be including basically everything, including adaptive cruise control with their level 2 travel assist feature, with the advanced park system being an optional thing here, it seems. And one other important note is that the Tiguan no longer is offered with a tiny third row. It's only 2 rows now, like all the other competitors, other than the Mitsubishi Outlander, which is now the only vehicle in the segment to offer those rear jump seats. Mechanically, though, they all run the EA888 version of the 2-liter turbo 4 that does 17 more horsepower than before, for a total of 201 horsepower. A torque figure wasn't provided for some reason, but the tow rating does slightly improve from 1,500 pounds to 1,800 pounds for the all-wheel drive versions, which means front-wheel drive will also still be available, unlike some of the competitors that have gone, all-wheel drive only. And so hopefully that'll give the Tiguan a pricing advantage to hopefully undercut some of the competitors. If, they can offer that front-wheel drive version for people who don't need all-wheel drive, it'll be really good in those sunnier states especially. And speaking of pricing, we don't have pricing for these yet, but with the old Tiguan being Volkswagen's best seller and sales being up 19% this year for the Tiguan, likely due to its price, because certainly not because it's changed in the past 5 years or whatever. So clearly this is driven by the low price tag compared to the competitors. Volkswagen shouldn't want to screw that up. Obviously, this is a new generation, lots more standard tech and standard features, so it's probably going to have to get more expensive. But they're really going to have to be careful here that they don't squash the one good thing they have going for them, with Tiguan sales doing well. And so we will see how this plays out. But the current version, its starting price is just over 30 grand. So we will see how much they can stick to that here for this new generation version. So final pricing, they say, will come closer to the on-sale date, which we don't have yet. But since it's a 2025 model year vehicle, I'd assume that means we're going to get it sometime in the first half of 2025 here. But we will see. And anyway, interesting to see that. And for the last LA debut here, Fiat has revealed the 500e Giorgio Armani Collector's Edition. And this one seems pretty cringy to me, especially being called a Collector's Edition. No one is collecting this thing. No one. It's not a collectible. It's a little, nice commuter vehicle. And I have a review of a 500e coming here in December. I actually really like it. But, this is just kind of silly. It's also disappointing because, Fiat is really running on fumes right now. 500e is not selling well. They don't have anything else to offer except the 500X, which they're currently still embarrassingly advertising on their website as a 2023 model year and advertising it for 20% off MSRP. Yeah, dealers, not like these dealers are only living off Fiat, but, they really need something to justify keeping Fiat around at these dealers, and the 500e is not cutting it. And, they have the Abarth version of the 500e. They're dragging their feet with bringing that over here. That could have, at least brought some excitement and maybe a few enthusiasts, or better yet, bring the 600e over. Again, it's an EV. This should not be some kind of expensive thing to certify. 600e, again, gives you 4 doors, makes things a little bit larger, and would be, obviously a better seller, I think, than the 500e, or anything else in the Fiat range. Anything else from Fiat, I think anything would be an improvement. Send anything you like over from Europe, from Fiat, and, that would have been a better debut than this Giorgio Armani stuff that, they're going to sell 5 of. So, anyway, this Armani edition, if you are one of the 5 people interested in it, it gives you unique wheels, unique green and grayish colors, along with unique eco leather with matching colors on the inside, a wood grain dash, and, of course, special badging. It'll be available in the first quarter of 2025, and there's no pricing for those yet. Moving on here, though, one brand that I'm hoping is charting a new path forward in a very good way is Jaguar. So last week they teased their first new car, and it's this big, crazy-looking thing and really exciting. It'll debut on December 2nd alongside a few other Jaguar concepts that are all going to show off this new design language, presumably in various body styles. So this week they showed us the new branding for the company, which has been a lot more controversial, including a new leaping Jaguar, as well as a design script that brings symmetry and simplicity, they say. Everyone's just laughing at the fact there's a capital G and everything else is lowercase. There's also an ambiguous crest of just 2 J's for the new badge, which honestly seems a little generic to me, not very distinctive. Obviously, again, the goal here was to depart from the past and not, carry over the same stuff from before or any kind of heritage stuff for that matter, it seems, aside from, again, the cat, I suppose. But, just, I don't know. I don't love it. We will see, though. If the cars are awesome, it doesn't matter. So hopefully the cars are awesome and it doesn't matter. But let me know your thoughts on that rebrand in the comments below. And this is all designed along with the cars to justify Jaguar's higher positioning with these new models all being six-figure vehicles. You know, they've already said they're going to be going after Porsche, Maserati, and Bentley with these new vehicles. And yeah, I mean, I hope they maybe just use the leaping cat a lot more, you know, because I think that would be, you know, great. And again, gives you that connection to Jaguar that everyone's used to. But anyway, they also showed off a few more teaser images on their Instagram, which they completely deleted all the content on their Instagram. And they're even, it's a clean sheet there too, which is kind of funny for their 17 million followers on there. So the images here first show off a fender garnish that doubles as a housing for some kind of sensor, it appears. And the other image shows off a bold back end that seemingly doesn't have taillights, at least not that high up. Maybe they're, you know, way lower down or something. And appears to not have a rear window either. So I'm guessing the taillights have to be like super low in the rear bumper, you know, and then a third brake light to give you better visibility for people that, you know, can't look down that low. I don't know. It'll be very interesting. Again, this is also potentially still a concept. I mean, clearly the first teaser was a vehicle driving. Whether that's what we actually see or if we're seeing some other, you know, far out stuff just for kicks, I don't know. But I was hoping we'd actually see the thing in camo without camo on December 2nd, which would mean it'd be something that would have to have functional taillights in a usual spot, but we will see. Clearly it's going to be bold and wild and unlike anything we've seen before, it seems, in the car design world. So we will see how that plays out. But I think this Jaguar story has been the most interesting one to follow here in the past few weeks, and these teasers keep rolling out on their Instagram, so I'm curious to see more here over the coming days and that full debut here on December 2nd. But very interesting. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. And Lotus is another British brand that was charting a new course, having this new, fresh future of exclusively EVs by 2028 was their initial goal. But this week, their CEO revealed to Autocar that goal is out the window and that whole plan is being scrapped. And instead, they've planned to make future Lotus models plug-in hybrids instead, with super hybrid technology that combines a turbo engine with batteries that can flash charge, they say, thanks to the 900-volt electrical architecture that they already have in their EVs. They're going to be using that in these plug-in hybrids. And they say that they'll be able to do a total of 680 miles of total range. And so, you know, because, again, they're talking about the 900-volt system, I'm guessing they're talking about the Elantra and EMEA, you know, which, again, are currently only EVs, probably seeing that those aren't going to sell super hotly, and that they need to have some type of alternative powertrain to, you know, increase the appeal of those. It doesn't sound like Lotus is interested in any regular hybrids or sticking with gas, although it sounds like, again, they are certainly maybe open to that now, since they're kind of throwing, you know, the EV stuff out the window, you know, as far as that being exclusively what they're doing. I'm sure, again, they will still be doing that, but, you know, not sure what this means for the future of their sports cars. Maybe it means that the Emira lives on beyond 2028 now, at least, and just, you know, does what Lotus does very well, you know, keeps itself going for a long time. And that honestly could be totally fine, because especially if Cayman and Boxer are going all electric, you know, Emira is going to get a bunch of new people that buy it just because it's a new gas-powered sports car that's the size of a Porsche that, you know, is the alternative that Porsche is not offering anymore. So I really hope that at least Emira, this means that, you know, it sticks on until 2035 or whenever they have to stop selling it. But yeah, very interesting to see that. And yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, it helps Lotus to just thrive. I just want Lotus to do well, and hopefully, you know, this helps them to do that. But in some even bigger news here, we have a few big executive changes here this week. Hyundai and Volkswagen both got new CEOs. First, Hyundai's global CEO is moving on to be vice chairman, and the current head of the North American divisions of Hyundai and Genesis, Jose Munez, will now be running the whole global Hyundai Motor Company beginning on January 1st. So he's a pretty good track record. They're obviously very happy with what he has done for the North American market. And now he's going to be running the whole global thing for Hyundai Motor Company, which is awesome. And so congrats to him. And yeah, sounds like, I guess, the you know, current CEO just might want to move on, you know, to a more relaxed position, kind of like Akio Toyoda did, you know, in Toyota here. And so great to see them passing on the torch there. But it's not so rosy with Volkswagen's CEO change. So the North American CEO, so not for the whole Volkswagen Group, but just for Volkswagen North America, for the brand and also the whole Volkswagen Group in North America. It's kind of confusing the way it's set up, but North American CEO has resigned abruptly here this week as well, with the head of HR filling in until December 12th, when the new CEO, Dr. Kjell Gruner, I probably butchered that, I apologize, but he'll be taking over. And Gruner is the former CEO of Porsche North America before going to Rivian in 2023 and then quitting there earlier this year. So there's no reason given for the hasty departure of the current CEO, but his name is Pablo Desi. But German news outlets had been speculating for weeks about his departure potentially happening, claiming that internally, supposedly, Volkswagen folks in Europe were blaming him for some of the company's problems, despite the fact that the U.S. market is the only bright spot in an otherwise terrible year for Volkswagen corporate. So here in the U.S., sales are actually up 7% compared to last year for Volkswagen. The same can't be said for basically every other market where sales have plummeted badly, like some are like over 30%. So I'm sure, if they were trying to make him the scapegoat for their problems when it's like he's the only one that's executed well this year for Volkswagen, and the fact that even Volkswagen's global CEO just a couple of weeks ago said that decades of structural problems were one of the main reasons for their current struggles, in addition to the regulatory environment and a bunch of other stuff. So, again, I'm just speculating here, but if they were trying to put any of that stuff on him, and whenever he's, the best performer objectively in the company as far as divisional CEOs goes, I think that's, I don't know, maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe there's some bad blood there. I don't know, but so yeah, we will see. But I mean, obviously, taking over with someone who's a former Porsche CEO, obviously is going to be a great fit, and hopefully will be someone who also leads the North American operations very well here. But very interesting to see that it was so abrupt. Definitely suggests there might be some drama behind the scenes there. But speaking of those struggles for Volkswagen this week has been talking about how they're trying to cut wages of both blue-collar and white-collar jobs in order to avoid massive layoffs and factory closures that might happen otherwise. And even executives and board members are supposedly getting pay cuts and losing their bonuses this year. And so this might be, again, part of the problem with this North American CEO departure. Maybe in addition to them trying to put all this crap on him, if he's going to also get a giant pay cut, not like money's everything, especially when you get to this level where you're already, probably pretty comfortable. But, maybe that's part of it too. If he's getting a bunch of crap and he's going to get paid less, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But, if Volkswagen can't pass through these wage cuts, because there's some debate as far as whether they can actually, have everyone agree to this, but if they can't get the wage cuts, they said 3 factories would have to close, including one that builds the current gen Porsche Boxster in Cayman, which they had said would be built alongside the electric version for a little while for the markets that still allow it to be sold. It's not allowed to be sold in, I think, the EU markets, but other markets it is, including North America. So basically, the bottom line why I'm talking about this here is that it could potentially limit the amount of Boxster and Caymans they can build, and that production might come to an end sooner than we initially had thought. It's been kind of back and forth with the whole Boxster Cayman story for those gas ones and what their future holds, but it sounds like if they can't work this out, those could go away sooner rather than later. So we'll see about all that. But also in Europe, Ford is struggling badly. And so this week they announced the layoff of 4,000 European workers between now and 2027, which is about 14% of its total European workforce. And so Ford officially is blaming the shift to EVs and government emissions regulations along with new competition, especially from China. But, this also is sad because this is partially Ford's own fault and them trying to blame other things whenever it was just bad decision making. They got rid of Mondeo and Fiesta there, 2 very good sellers. They're getting rid of Focus next year, also a very good seller. And again, they're replacing these things with expensive EVs like the Explorer EV that just debuted this year over there, and also the Capri, which is another thing, a slap in the face to Capri fans, much like Mustang fans here in the States with Mach-E. That's obviously not going to go over very well, and it hasn't. And, instead of doing fresh stuff, they're trying to recycle old ideas with a new flair, and it just doesn't seem like it's working very well, especially whenever they kill their best sellers. Why not do a Focus EV? Why not do Fiesta EV? The small, affordable stuff that everyone wants and needs instead of these big, fancier things. But Anyway, I mean, this is Ford culture of, this blame game as well. Whenever they can't see that they're the ones that are they're to blame for their own problems in a lot of cases. But anyway, so we will see how that plays out for Ford. I'm just reporting on this one. I usually don't talk about layoffs and stuff, but reporting on this one because maybe this will mean Ford will change course. Maybe Focus will stay around because Focus is still in production. Maybe this will convince them to keep Focus around longer and realize, like, look, we at least have one of these still in production that's a good seller. Maybe we can try and extend out this stuff and keep Focus going longer. We'll see. I'm keep my fingers crossed for European fans there that still love the Focus. I'd be sad to see that actually go away. But in another more interesting move from Ford that does make more sense, Ford is making the first mid-sized heavy-duty truck, the Ranger Super Duty, but it's only for Australia. And so Ford teased it in a YouTube video saying it's coming in 2026 and that it'll tow almost 10,000 pounds. To accomplish this, the increase over a regular Ranger's 7,500 pound towing, it'll likely be higher to accommodate the stronger chassis and suspension, and could also be longer and just bigger in general as well. But here in the States, this wouldn't make any sense, of course, because this would then encroach on the full-size trucks, and we obviously have Super Duties and all that, and regular F-150, I think, can now tow about 10,000 pounds or so. So, I mean, this is something that only makes sense for areas that don't get an F-150 or the Super Duties. And so, it's cool, though, that they're offering this, and great to see, some extra capability there for those in Australia. And getting back to America here, there's also some bad news at GM here this past week, with the company announcing their own layoffs here in America that happened last Friday via email for about 1,000 workers. About 50 of these jobs are UAW workers as well, which the UAW vice president said comes at a time when GM is making record profits and vowed to get at least those 50 jobs back for those union workers. And so GM told Motor One that in order to win in this competitive market, we need to optimize for speed and excellence. This includes operating with efficiency, ensuring we have the right team structure, and focusing on our top priorities as a business. So some of these cuts come as a result of them discontinuing their testing at their Arizona proving grounds, just like Stellantis recently did. And Stellantis is actually selling their proving grounds. I don't know if GM owns theirs or what the deal is there, if they're going to sell theirs too. But I know with Stellantis, they said they were going to just do their hot weather testing at a nearby Toyota facility. Maybe GM's like, oh wait, that was an option? Hey, Toyota, and called them up, and they're going to use that as well, and everyone just shares a proving ground. Maybe that's what's happening here. I'm not sure, but they're all just kind of making that a little bit leaner. They're also cutting back on testing, though, at their Milford proving grounds in Michigan that test durability and corrosion, and will instead be entrusting their suppliers with this testing. And as a commenter on the Motor One website rightly pointed out, suppliers checking their own quality, what could go wrong? And I agree. Doesn't seem like a great idea here. And so combined with, them maybe not doing as much hot weather testing, maybe they still will do the same amount. And then also suppliers, managing their own quality, and not verifying that, GM not testing that themselves anymore. I'm a little nervous about future GM quality. Hopefully it will still be great, but this introduces a few question marks that weren't there before. And so we will see how that ends up playing out for them there. And so very interesting times here. But speaking of Stellantis, though, and troubles, we have a little bit more bad news from them this week and some adjusting plans for them. So they announced that the Ram 1500 REV and the Ramcharger, which is, that really cool plug-in hybrid one, they're both being delayed from an on-sale date of this month, it was the initial plan, to now sometime in the first half of 2025. Their CEO explained on a call with reporters that we are facing a very significant amount of workload, and we want to be very prudent in the way we validate the products, so we take our time. So this is actually good to hear, though, because, pumping the brakes is something I think needs to happen with, a lot of the quality issues we've seen this year with Ram for just the regular gas-powered versions. They don't want to rush the electric one and the plug-in hybrid one, which have a lot more components, a lot more software complexity, potentially even more problems. They're waiting if they don't get that right, from the start. So, even though it's unfortunate if you're someone who's been looking forward to those vehicles, to go on sale, which I don't think is a lot of people. That was the other thing they said, is there's not a whole lot of risk here to delay the Ram REV, because I don't think they have a ton of people lining up for an electric Ram. But that Ramcharger one, I think there was a decent amount of interest in it, at least, over a year ago when that debuted. So that's a little unfortunate for that one. But again, I think everyone agrees we'd rather have them delay everything and have it not be, a disaster from a quality standpoint. If it needs to take more time to bake, take all the time you need to bake it and, make the solid products that everyone wants. So interesting to hear that. And for the last news story here this week, Mercedes has shared some of the mechanical details for the new CLA that's coming next year, and they're pretty promising. So they confirmed it'll be available both as a full EV and as a mild hybrid gas-powered vehicle. So that gas one will use a new 1.5-liter turbo 4 running the Miller cycle that Mercedes just developed here, and it's paired with a new 8-speed dual-clutch transmission that they also just developed that also has a 27-horsepower electric motor integrated inside of it, and all combined it'll do 188 horsepower and power the front wheels, but all-wheel drive will still be an option for those. Now, the more interesting one, though, is the EV, because we're starting to see their next generation EV tech here with this. So it'll use an 800-volt architecture, which is notable for a small car like this, and up to 320 kilowatt fast charging, also really close to the top of the pack these days. They only shared info on the premium battery, but that one will be an 85 kilowatt hour usable pack that they claim will do up to 466 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle, thanks to these very efficient electric motors. To do, even in the EPA testing, it should still be over 400 miles, I'm guessing. To do over 400 miles of range out of an 85 kilowatt hour pack, that is very good efficiency. It's only 85 kilowatt hours of power, and it's doing over 400 miles of range. This is the kind of advancements that I've been talking about for years and that we're starting to see here, and this is exciting. To be over 400 miles of range easily is going to be great. And so this motor is called the Electric Drive Unit 2.0 that was designed in-house and does 268 horsepower and powers the rear in this application. So it'll actually be a rear-wheel drive CLA too, which will be really cool. They will also offer a 107 horsepower front motor. It's kind of like a boost motor for those who do want all-wheel drive. But even with that optioned on, there will still be a front trunk because of how compact these motors are, they say. So you'll have a frunk. That'll be really nice for a small vehicle like this to have the extra storage space, have, lots of power, by the way, too. I don't know what the peak power is going to be because they might not make peak power at the same time, those two motors, but we'll have something probably over 300 horsepower in this as well. Tons of range, really fast charging, and the motor will run through a 2-speed transmission as well on that main motor to increase efficiency. So I think that might be part of the secret here is finally putting transmissions in these EVs. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but for other applications it does, and so this is great. And so it'll be arriving sometime next year, followed by 2 other crossovers on this same platform. They didn't say, but presumably it'll be the GLB and the GLA. So great to see those improvements, though. Really impressive stuff there, and hopefully they can keep the costs down and reasonable. Hopefully, again, battery costs do continue to fall, and as a result, hopefully this comes in at a decent price, because if you have something that is priced well, this fast, this much range, and it has, the typically very nice Mercedes exterior and interior, this could actually be the hit, especially the electric hit that Mercedes desperately needs. And then especially you can package it into the more popular GLB in particular, that boxy thing that people love here, especially here in the States. Then I could really start to see Mercedes' fortunes turning here. So keep my fingers crossed for them, wish them all the best, and we will see. But I think especially, again, you tell Americans, hey, this thing does over 400 miles of range, again, you get a lot more people interested there as well. So very interesting to see that. Lastly, though, I'd like to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have a bunch of new members that were able to join this past week thanks to the very generous gifting that was done by many of you here during last week's live stream. So I want to give a big thank you here to those people that gifted the memberships: Brian Harrington, Linda Hamill, Luco1234, Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Shane Lockett. So huge thanks to all of you for your generosity. I appreciate it. I'm sure all those new members and those who are able to rejoin also very much appreciate it. And I also want to welcome here all those new members, including Himaneth Mothika, One Timer 99, Mojo Jojo, Terry 96 Cherokee, V Sock Edisi Oyelanar, TJZ, Luis Garcia, Malin 650, and Paxton Maran. So hope you're all enjoying those membership perks so far. Be sure to join the live stream here on Sunday night if you can, where all those members do get that priority answering. Looking forward to chatting with all of you who can make it. And for anyone else that like those membership perks, including that priority answering, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.